Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Wednesday Wisdom on the Educational AD Podcast, sponsored by K-12 Sports Tech. Before we meet today's Wednesday Wisdom guest, we're going to do our shout outs like always, but we encourage you to visit these sponsors. Every single one of them I used or I've got a direct connection to. So stay with us for the next couple minutes, okay, and listen to our sponsor shout outs, then go visit them. Here we go. We want to thank K-12 Sports Tech for sponsoring our Wednesday Wisdom segments. K-12 Sports Tech helps ADs and sport vendors connect through education and hands-on consulting services. And athletic directors are also invited to join the K-12 Sports Tech AD think tank and help influence how companies shape their tech to serve schools. For more information or to join the think tank, all you have to do is go to K12sportstech.com. That's K12sportstech.com. Check them out today. We want to say thanks to our friends at Huddle. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but as an athletic director, I wanted a platform that was going to help all of our teams, and Huddle came through like a champ. Our coaches loved it, our kids, our parents loved it. It allowed our kids to experience sports at the highest level. Join the 8 million users. Turn your school into a Huddle school. We want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com. Start creating world-class content for your school's social media channel. Okay? Gipper is used and trusted by over 4,000 programs across the country. It's professional graphic design made easy. That's Gipper.com. We want to say thank you to Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform you're going to use every single day for things like scheduling, student athlete eligibility and clearance, uploading forms, communicating with your coaches, you name it, Home Campus does it. To get started, all you have to do is go to homecampus.com. That's homecampus.com. We'd like to thank Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was a Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Their products not only generate income for your department, but they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. That's sidelineinteractive.com. We'd like to thank Hometown Ticketing. Hometown's the leading digital ticketing provider for schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. We'd like to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Their interactive touchscreen video consoles are a great way to show off your school record boards for all the teams, for all the sports, or your school's Hall of Fame. It's also a great way to tell your school's unique history and your proudest moments. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. We want to say thanks to Snap Raise, hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with great success, and so will you. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it. It works. Go to snapraise.com. Check out their other platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you found it. Go to snapraise.com. We want to say thanks to the Ohio University Masters in Athletic Administration for their support of the podcast. It's an affordable 20-month online program, and it focuses exclusively on interscholastic athletics. When you finish, you're not only going to have your master's degree, you're going to have 11 NIAAA leadership training courses that can go towards your RAA or CAA. To get started, all you need to do is go to ohio.edu/info/MAA. And we want to say thank you to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that connects you with your athletes, your parents, and your coaches. And that's tremendously valuable information to have when you're speaking with a frustrated parent or student athlete, or maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com to get started. Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Wednesday Wisdom on the Educational AD Podcast. And a reminder, these Wednesday Wisdom segments are now sponsored by K-12 Sports Tech. Our guest today is one of our new regulars. She was also on the podcast in a full interview. It's Hannah Bleikamp. She's the Director of Athletics at Whetstone High School, and that's in Columbus, Ohio. Has a very, very strong background in athletics. And as I said, she's a member of our Wednesday Wisdom team. So, Hannah, welcome back. And what do you have for our listeners this time on Wednesday Wisdom?
Thanks for having me back. And yeah, it does feel like a regular thing now. I know when I talk to my, friends and stuff, I'm like, oh, I'm jumping back on the podcast, and they're able to reference, the previous episodes. So thanks again for having me back. And I'm actually really excited about the topic today, talking about how to prepare for an interview that's focused around being an athletic director. I think about when I was applying to these athletic director positions, and when I had landed my interview, I was, looking for help in all directions. I know we had talked about how I'd listened to this podcast of previous ADs to kind of help myself relate to them or understand, what it was like to be in the position so I could better, relate my experiences to being, suitable candidate to be an athletic director, and, feel more confident knowing that, I could relate to them. But I looked around for all different information, and I think if we can create something today that for somebody who's going into an interview for an athletic director, they can listen to this and feel like, I hit, a couple different topics and help them prepare for, that interview to be an AD, whether it be their first one or, a couple down the road there. So, I kind of want to start by just sharing my interview experience when it came to, interviewing to be an AD with Columbus City Schools here. So I remember getting the call to be an interview for the AD. Sorry, my cat is down here. To interview to be an AD, and I was instantly excited, instantly nervous, and I started panicking like, what I need to prepare. I need to get stuff ready. What questions am I going to ask? And walking into my interview, I had prepared a long list of things, which I'll talk about here in a second. But I had walked into a room of a panel of 5 different people, and they went about and kind of asked their general questions. And one thing that they had done during the interview that I did not expect was they had these worksheets, like these mini tests that I had to complete kind of in front of them. And one of them was, something comes up, a coach gets fired, or, a kid does something, gets in trouble. It's a big, what we would call like a news hit. In what order would you start dealing with said instance? And I basically had to sit there, and I think it was 10 minutes to order them all. And then I had to explain why I put them in that specific order to the whole panel, which I'll talk a little bit more later on. But I want to talk about how I prepared for that interview. And the interview ended up being about 2 hours long. So it was pretty lengthy. And I remember walking out thinking, I don't think there was anything that I did not cover. I feel like I represented myself, my experience, and my ability well. And I also want to reference that I was, I think, 26 years old at the time. So pretty young, for that kind of position based on my experience with my network. Um, and I felt like that was something I had to kind of compete with, was that I was a young woman going in for this interview, and I was going to prepare like there was no tomorrow. So certain things that I did to prepare, I started by reading job descriptions of what other AD postings look like. Were there differences between them? Um, how can I relate my experience to the expectations of the right candidate, and just helping myself build that confidence around all these different job descriptions for an AD to better represent myself to this panel. And I also did a lot of Googling. I Googled, what questions will I be asked? What questions to ask? Anything and everything you could think to Google it. ask all the questions in your preparation and ask your network. If you're a college student, email other ADs and ask if they'll sit with you for 10 minutes to help you prepare. Ask your network to be a reference. Just really getting as much information as you can to better understand the position, especially if this is your first interview to be an AD. Because you really don't understand the capacity of the job unless you've really worked in it, or interned and witnessed it firsthand. So really asking your network to help better describe what the day-to-day is and how you can build confidence in yourself that you have had that kind of experience. In practicing your responses. I know I laid out my outfit. I had it ready days before the interview, and I would practice my responses to questions I had expected them to ask me in the mirror, seeing myself answer them, feeling more confident that I am, like I keep coming back to the word confidence, but that was like the biggest thing for me in my first interview to become an AD was I am confident that I deserve this position based on my experience and my ability. And representing that confidence is important. And lastly, one other thing that I did to prepare was I created a list of situations in my career where you had to problem solve, deal with unforeseen circumstance, advocate for the youth, deal with an angry parent. Create this list, just for yourself so you can help refresh your memory because they're going to ask questions about how can you problem solve. Tell me about a time where you were confronted by somebody who is upset with a game or with an official. Create a list of these so you don't have to try to dig in your memory in the moment of the interview. That'll really help you kind of prevent from sitting there and going, let me think. Instead, you've prepared yourself to kind of dug these back out, put them on paper, and you're prepared to kind of advocate for the experiences that you had.
Those are all tremendously, impressive techniques to prepare. And I look back at my own career 100 years ago when I was starting out, I did none of that. Okay. If I got called in for an interview as a young teacher, coach candidate, more so for teaching than coaching, it seems awkward now, but I just was waiting for them to ask me questions and didn't prepare anything at all as I started to, grow. And a lot of times the school district at that point, they were desperate. They were looking for a warm body to come in and teach health or PE. So,
Mhm.
and I could coach a lot of different things. But uh, as I started to build my coaching resume and just talking with people, they would mention similar things. And this is something that was shared with me at an early age, but not early enough, was that when you go into the interview, you are really selling yourself. And if you just
Yeah.
sit there kind of passively waiting for their questions, I can remember vividly at the end of my first interview ever. Well, Jake, do you have any questions for us? I'm going, nope. Do I get the job? Okay. So you always want to have those questions. And
Mhm.
everything you said was just outstanding. And you talk about doing your research. For my final job, the athletic director job where I was hired to finish out my career before I retired, um, I did my research. Um, and I went deep. And I remember as I was going from committee to committee, there would be teachers, there would be coaches, there would be parents, there'd be student athletes. And I could recite because I prepared. I remember a parent asks, because they saw my resume, I'm a football guy, I'm a track guy as a
Mhm.
coach. They had a very successful cross country program. And they said, well, Jake, do you know anything about, our cross country? And I just listed off, their 26 consecutive district championships, their 4 state championships. I said, last year at state, you lost to Circle Christian. They had a lot of seniors, but you've got most of your team coming back. I had researched the results
Mhm.
and I could just see the eyes on this mom go wide, like, wow, this guy really wants his job, really did his research. But there are a couple other instances like that. So if you
Mhm.
have that opportunity, and you really want that job, do your research. And then,
Definitely.
like I said, sell yourself.
So a couple other things. I want to talk about things that you can bring that help take the mental load off of yourself to not feel the pressure of having to remember all these different situations that you've been in to help, represent your work. When I had went to this interview, I had actually brought my coaching philosophy typed out and in like a graphic form. At the time of interviewing, I would get very nervous in situations like that. And I knew I needed to be able to represent my work in a way that didn't just rely on my public speaking, because I knew I was going to be nervous, especially in this panel of 5 people that were all athletic directors. They'd all been in the seat for a while. Um, 2 of them for 20 plus years at the time. So what do I have to show these people as, my first interview to be an AD? So I brought this, colorful chart. I'd broken down the chart all on this piece of paper, and they had asked me a question about my coaching philosophy. And I was so glad they asked that question because I had prepared it. And so I felt really confident in being able to stand up and be like, I'm glad you asked that question. I actually have a handout to help you understand my coaching philosophy in this form. And so when you pass these things out in front of people, it allows you, if you're nervous in a situation like that, to take the pressure off you. They're looking at your document. You can sit back and take a breath for a second, let them look at the document, and then talk about it while they're not staring right at you. I found that allowed me to kind of settle in a little bit better. And I also brought like budget statements from a previous job with permission from that job, but to showcase that, yes, I have experience with the financial side of sport. And if you don't have that experience, make one. And try to represent that you can understand what budgeting in the sport world looks like. What things do you need to budget for? How much do you need to have set aside? Just some kind of example to help represent your experience in that form. So I brought one of those, and that again allowed the pressure to be taken off of me for a second because it was a big, long document. But the more pressure you can take off of yourself and allow you to just relax and speak kind of from your personality. Um, I I think it's important that when you're in an interview like this, that even though you want to check all the boxes that the interviewer has, you still want to make sure that you're representing your personality and that they can see that you're not just trying to check all the boxes. I know I had experienced this in the interview when in that long list of where you had to order everything out into what's most important to least important and then talk about it. One of them was, if somebody gets in trouble for something, who do you contact first? You have the principal, you have a teacher, you have a parent, and then there was one that was the local news station, which is obviously last on the list. It was a pretty obvious last pick. And they're like, okay, now how did you order them? And I'm a very like playful, humorous person, like very lighthearted, in the job. We're gonna laugh through it, kind of a thing, and get through it together. I told them, I was like, well, I'm definitely gonna call the news first. And they looked at me and I was like, I'm joking. I'm joking. So, we all kind of laughed together, and that allowed for me to kind of show my personality a little bit, create a lighter energy in the room, and just kind of show who I am a little bit. Like, yes, I'm passionate about the job, about getting the job and the preparation for it, but I also really need to laugh right now because I'm stressed. Um, but that was a really I think about that often, about how that really changed the energy in the room and allowed me to relax and again be more confident, speak to my work, ask the questions. So, like you had said, it's an opportunity to showcase yourself. And one last kind of off the wall tip is ask the risky questions. Ask about their program. It's just as much an interview of the program as it is for you. You want to make sure that it's going to be a good fit for you. The last question I asked before I walked out of the room, which I was very nervous to ask because I did not have any experience in a school other than coaching at the time, it was seventh grade basketball, uh, was, do you see any reason why I would not be a good fit for this position? Because in the end, even if I wasn't a good fit for the position, you don't know what you don't know until you know. So you want to be told, why am I not fitting into this position? And then if you don't get the job, you can work on that. But more times than not, you're not going to have that opportunity after the interview, whether it be via email or whatnot. You want to understand why they may have hesitations for you. And if you don't feel like if you did not interpret a question correctly, or they're not interpreting your answer right, and they're kind of hesitations about that, you can clarify in that moment, or you can take it as a learning experience and use it moving forward. But I was really nervous to ask that question, but it really helped create some clarification for my expectations when I left the room. So,
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. And I don't know if I would ask that one personally, but again, as you're in that interview, you're going
mhm.
to be reading the room. You've got a feel for how things are going. And at the time, that sounds like it worked out very much
It
in your
did.
favor. Yeah. Um, but you talked about checking boxes. And if you're early in your career and you don't have, a tremendous amount of, let's say, accolades on your resume, you
Mhm.
still want that job. And so take what you have, take your strengths, you're young, you're enthusiastic, you've learned at the knee of some great coaches. Mention those coaches or those ADs by name. Be a name dropper if it works in your favor. But don't let them focus on whatever shortcomings your resume might have.
Mhm.
You're young, you're experienced, but I'm eager, I'm
Yeah.
willing to learn. Sell yourself. Let them see that they should offer you that job before you walk out the door. Now, it's not always going to happen, even on jobs you get, but sell yourself. That's what I keep coming back to.
Mhm.
And the tips that you shared, Hannah, just outstanding. If I was still in the job market, boy, I'd be putting those in my toolbox. Yeah.
Mhm. For sure. Well, if anyone wants to follow along with Whetstone, I am on Instagram, Whetstone_athletic director, or you can follow me at LinkedIn. Just my first and last name, Hannah Bleikamp. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, Hannah's on social media. That's actually how we connected through LinkedIn. Hannah Bleikamp, Whetstone High School. That's in Columbus, Ohio. Thanks again for joining our Wednesday Wisdom team and sharing with our listeners. All the best as you battle the elements in Ohio for spring sports season. And let us know if we can do anything down the road.
Thanks again for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, you bet. For listeners, we appreciate you coming on. And just a reminder, we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this every week and just about every day with new content and best practices. So come back and join us on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time. Hey, some great stuff from Hannah Bleikamp at Whetstone High School. Before we go, we do want to give a shout out to our sponsors. And as I've mentioned a couple times, Wednesday Wisdom is now the name sponsored by K-12 Sports Tech. K-12 Sports Tech helps ADs and vendors connect through education and hands-on consulting services. K-12 Sports Tech's also looking to add some athletic directors to their AD think tank. So if you're interested in finding out more, all you have to do is go to www.k12sportstech.com/join. We also want to thank our other sponsors that make this possible: Gipper, Huddle, Hometown Ticketing, Snap, Raise Fundraising, Home Campus, Sideline Interactive Indoor Score Tables, Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack, Vital Signs Wall of Fame, and Ohio University's online Masters of Science in Athletic Administration. Thanks to all of our great sponsors. We'll see you next time on Wednesday Wisdom on the Educational AD Podcast.